To pick images with a popover controller and a popover, we start from a single view application, and in that we're going to have an image view that will display an image from the camera roll. And we're going to grab that image with a magical class called the UIMagePickerController. On the iPhone you can present it as is because it's a view controller. You can just use the present view controller method, but on iPad you're not supposed to do that. And even though it works, it doesn't work very well. So it's only going to work in portrait, and I'm not sure your app may get rejected. Apple in the human interface guidelines say that a UIMagePickerController on iPad must be presented with a popover. So we'll create that UIMagePickerController class, then we're going to create a UIPopoverController and put the image picker into the controller. Not really hard, it's just, once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes like taking candy from a baby. Just like before, I'm going to start with an empty single view iPad application. And in my storyboard here, I'll head over to the editor menu, well, with the view controller selected, of course. I'll head over to my editor menu and click embed in a navigation controller. Therefore I'll get this nice little look of a navigation bar at the top, which I can populate with a funky button. That's exactly what I'm going to do. At the bottom of my UI elements list, I've got the UI bar button item. And this time I'm going to pick the camera symbol, because that seems appropriate here. I also want to display an image, so I'm going to see if I can find an image view. Perhaps this one. Sounds good. Let's drag that in and make that fill the entire screen. There. It's best to have a really large monitor if you're developing stuff for iPad. We'll switch over into the Assistant Editor view, and first we're going to grab a reference to that image view here. I'll just call it image view. We'll grab a reference to our bar button item. I'll call it camera button. And I'm also going to grab an action that can be called when that is pressed. Camera button pressed. There we go. That's all we need. We're not going to create a popover controller here. We're not going to be dealing with segues. We're going to do everything in code because the UIMagePickerController is a view controller in itself, and we've already learned how to create a popover controller in code, so we're just going to merge these two together. In my view controller implementation file, let's focus on the camera button pressed method. And let's define what we want to do here. We're going to create an image picker, add it to a popover controller, and present it. And then we'll deal with how the image gets picked in the UIMagePickerController delegate in a moment. Notice that if we do that, we don't have to deal with the UIPopoverController delegate because the image picker is going to take care of all that. So let's bring this thing up. This is an instance of the UIMagePickerController. We'll call it picker. Alloc and init will work fine here. You can configure the picker if editing is allowed, for example. We're going to not do that. All we're going to tell the picker is that who its delegate is. It's us. Picker delegate self. This is going to give a warning because we're currently not conforming to the UIMagePickerController delegate protocol. The UIMagePickerController inherits from the UI navigation controller. So technically we're implementing both, which is why we need to conform to both protocols. Even though we don't need to implement the navigation controller delegate, we still have to conform to it so that this warning will go away. No problem, we'll do that up here, just behind the interface, @interface statement in our angular brackets. We're going to conform to the UIMagePickerController delegate, and we're also going to conform to the UI navigation controller delegate so that both these warnings will go away. Now that we have a picker, we want to create a UI Popover controller and add the picker to it as the content view controller, much like we did before. For that, of course, we need another property. There we go, just like before. Strong property to the UI Popover controller. And since we've never used it before, we need to alloc and init it with the content view controller that we've just created, which is the picker. We don't need to set a delegate here because we're not going to implement that protocol. If we do set that here, self popover delegate self, then we'll be told we need to conform to that protocol. It's not really necessary because the image picker is going to take care of the rest. All we need to do now is present that popover now. Present popover from bar button item, and we already have our camera button. Any direction is allowed, and yes, we'd like to animate it because it's all swish. This will bring up our image picker. Let's see if we're right about that. Nothing to see here. Do that. Popovers would like access to your photos. This is a question that gets asked once. You say yes, and there we go. Wow. You can now pick photos at your heart's content. Well, sadly, nothing really happens because even though that delegate method is called, we're not implementing it, so this thing doesn't go away. Let's deal with that next. These pragma marks really help as your programs grow, and they're going to be a lifesaver to your future self. Trust me on this. The image picker controller delegate commonly implements two methods we're interested in. One is what happens when an image was picked, and the other one is what happens when an image was not picked. In this case, because we're using a popover controller, we're only really interested in the first one. So, image picker controller did finish picking media with info. That's one we want to implement and handle what happens to the picked image. The other one you're maybe familiar with if you're implementing this on iPhone. That is image picker controller did cancel. And in it on iPhone you would just dismiss the image picker controller. Because we're using a popover here, the popover controller will take care of the rest, so I'm not even going to have to implement that here. Just so you know it's there. Now in this method here, we need to do two things. We need to dismiss the popover, otherwise it'll just lurk around forever and we don't really want that. And we need to grab the image and populate the UI. Let's do the popover dismissal first. We've got a reference to our popover controller, so we'll just use that. Self popover dismiss popover animated, yes. Popover gone, excellent. Now I'll grab the image. This is a little bit convoluted, but it grows on you after a while. We'll call it chosen image, and in this method here we're being passed the image picker, but more importantly we're being passed an info dictionary, and it contains several types of images, not just the one that was picked. It contains that, but it also contains various versions of it, and there may be an edited version, there may be an original version, a smaller cropped version, that sort of thing. So we need to ask the info dictionary for the correct image, and the way we do that is by using object for key. There are several things in here, and they're all enumerated, so we'll go for UIMagePickerController, there we go, several of them. And we're interested in the original image here, UIMagePickerController original image. Let's grab that. That already is a UI image. And so all we need to do now is put that into our image view. And we'll see if that works, shall we? Pick an image, perhaps this one. Hey, there we go. Let's pick another one. Definitely works. What happens if I bring this up and I don't select an image? I click outside the popover here. Popover disappears. I didn't have to do a thing. Thanks, Popover controller. Very kind of you. Great, so that is how you pick images from the camera roll using popovers. And remember, you have to do that on iPad. If you're using iPhone, you can just present the UIMagePickerController, but on iPad you have to use a popover for this. You can find a full working demo project on GitHub. It's just called Popovers. So look on github.com/verslewis and search for Popovers. That'll give you all the code that I've demonstrated in this video. That was it. I hope this was helpful. I hope this can bring some programming magic to your iPad apps. And if you like this video, don't forget to share it with friends, families, and total strangers. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Join me next time for more iOS fun. Take care. Bye for now.